Hey guys, how's it going? It's me, Francisco. Today, we won't have a camera today. I'll save you the unfortunate experience of having to look at me. So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna continue with what we were talking about earlier as far as JavaScript operators go. And I went ahead and pulled up the W3 Schools website because I think they have pretty solid information as far as JavaScript, and as far as like the learning curriculum, it's pretty good. So I would definitely suggest going through the introduction and just kind of going through these in case if there's anything that I might have left out that is pretty important. These are pretty significant to the basics of computer science, but I actually want to cover those in a later series where I'm talking more about the principles of designing software. This is just purely functional. I'm just going to show you how JavaScript works. Um, so I don't really want to get too bogged down with that. So let's just go ahead and go through this. So I taught you how to assign um, variables, and also adding two variables, multiplying. So we have the arithmetic operators, or we have the addition, subtraction, multiplication, exponential, uh, blah, exponential operators. So you guys, if you've done a basic math class, you know it's where you multiply a number exponentially in a little caret. Division, modulus, increment, and decrement. So that's just when you add by a whatever number. So that's really, so usually when you do like I plus plus, that means you're going to add one additional counter or whatever you want to call it to your variable. So these are the assignment operators. When I started doing JavaScript, I was pretty upset because whenever I was assigning a new value to a variable, it wouldn't update because I wasn't assigning it. I was just declaring it. So that's a little different. There's like so many different little things with development that you have to be very precise with what you want the computer to do. Otherwise, it's just not going to listen to you. So for example, whenever you assign x the value of 10, if you want to, if for example, if I were to just add x plus, or say x plus 5, I would console log the output of 15, but then whenever I call back for the variable x, it wouldn't be changed because technically the variable wasn't assigned again. So now I'm talking about the variable and I'm assigning the additional 5, or if I want to subtract 5. So we talked about it in the previous video, so if you want to go check back on that, go ahead. But I actually want to go over the string operators because that's something that we really didn't cover. So let's go back and talk about string operators. And let me just kind of make this bigger, just make it easier to look at. Okay, cool. So string operators is whenever we assign a variable a string. So var is there more? Wait, let's do this. Oh, that's why I'm not even in Node.js. So always start Node.js. Do I even have Node.js? Oh, you don't do Node.js here. Okay. So let me start it over again. So let's do var character, and then, and what sucks is that the command line interpreter doesn't really, highlight the syntax, and I would like it to highlight the syntax, but I don't really want to get into VS Code yet, but we'll get to that point. So, okay. So, of course, console log character, and it's Isgramor. Cool. So we're designing a game, and so this is our situation. So we're designing a game, and we want to say, hey, your character name has X amount of life points left, right? So how would we go about that in printing it into a string? So we're working on a text-based Dungeons and Dragons type game, and we just kind of want to just elaborate that we entered a new dungeon, and this is how much life points we have. Cool, right? So let's do a variable of life points, and I'm going to use LP instead of HP, and let's just do 10. And actually, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, and if we console.log and then we do the LP, there we go. Cool. All right, so as you can tell, this is this returned in a different color because this is an integer, and this is Isgramor is a string. So two different types, and this is where we find the difference between working something with C++ and JavaScript, is that JavaScript is very forgiving whenever we mix these numbers together, right? So let's do a const for message. And I'm going to do backticks on this. And the reason why I'm doing backticks, and you're probably not going to find it in the documentation with W3 schools, is because the way that you used to have to join different variables together is that you would have to do, for example, I would have to do something like welcome and then space plus, and for example, I'll do welcome and then I'll do my name here, so I'll do the var character, and then you'll have something like you don't forget you have to do the spaces because JavaScript interprets, and most of other programming languages interpret this very literal, so you might want to add those space marks in your string. So we'll do you have entered and then let's do a dungeon, right? So notice that dungeon is the dungeon is an actual variable, and these are strings, right? So don't forget you need to add the plus. You have and then plus, and then we'll do the LP, right? Plus life points. Okay. So I know that was very boring and probably painful for you to watch, but keep in mind that I know that we have this super long constant, but this constant is drawing on, it relies on other variables to accomplish it. So I can actually log this, and dungeon is not defined. So since it's not defined, I'll have to define dungeon. So I'll do var dungeon equals just do black reach. If you guys are Elder Scrolls fans, then I'm glad you're watching. If you're not, then you might want to do some Google searching and look at the Skyrim lore. And I might do Elder Scrolls Oblivion next time for all you other geeks. All right, so I think we're fine here. Okay. Okay, so I already declared it, so cool. And if I do console log message, oh, wow. So name declared is not defined. So, which is really weird because message is not defined. I'll have to pause this. Okay, yeah, so there's like this funky little quirk with using const. So, like I was saying before, you got to be careful when you use const and var and let, because there's little nuances there. And I guess const, you couldn't have any variables declared on const. So what I did is whenever you're not too sure on something, and this is going to be something that is going to help you in your developer life, I just console logged this entirely because I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have anything missing. So it worked. I called on those variables and it said, and notice that I was adding strings, and I was adding strings and then adding variables and also adding integers. So the cool thing is that JavaScript will actually concatenate these words or strings together. So it doesn't really throw an error and saying, hey, there is an integer here. What are you doing? No, it's just going to convert this integer into a string and just pass along a string as an output. So I got the welcome Isgrimor. You have entered Blackreach. You have 10 life points. Cool. All right. So what I do is I save this variable as a message, right? And remember that the variable relies on you having the char, the character variable, the dungeon variable, and the life point variable. Without these, you're going to get thrown an error. Luckily for us, we have already declared these in the environment. And once we do a console log message, we get the message, welcome Isgrimor, you have entered Blackreach, you have 10 life points. Cool, right? So we just pretty much solidified, or not solidified, but have learned that JavaScript will concatenate strings together, and it will make for development of a text-based game very, very simple, because we don't have to worry about storing variables as integers or as strings, because JavaScript will just work well with both. So that being said, we can move on to the next phase. And if you want to read more about it, if you go to W3 Schools, they'll pretty much show you, hey, this is adding 5 plus 5 as an integer, and if you add on Y, it's actually going to return string. So if you add string 5 plus 5, it's going to return as a string 55. So those are the quirky things. An example, you add string hello plus 5, it's just going to concatenate these two and treat them as a string. Of course, if you add as integers, it is going to give you a full-blown integer. So if you're doing some kind of mathematical operations and you expect a number, just make sure you don't do strings, because I've thrown in a number as a string and I quoted it because I don't know, I do silly things sometimes, and I think like I'm declaring it as a number. But yeah, and technically JavaScript doesn't have integers. I think they use numbers instead. And we're moving to the main course of the meal, is the JavaScript comparison operators. So that is the next set of operators, because you're evaluating your expression to be pretty much true or false, or what in computer science would be the binary system. Either you're going to evaluate the expression to 1 or 0. Pretty cool, huh?